Where are we going from here?
That's a great question. This is your show.
Oh, so now, once again, just because I browbeat you on the drive-thru about somebody's got to direct that runaway freight train. It's a ball running down a hill with you in charge. There's no control, no rhyme or reason. Here, we're structured here on the experience. We've got entertainment for everybody. Anyway, the Dark Side of the Ring comes back next week on Vice with a show about the North Korean super shows that WCW did in the 90s. And I'm not on this one because I wasn't on those. And actually, this is one I'm looking forward to because, well, we all heard the stories that were circulated at the time and heard about, the shows and the attendances and some of the situations. But honestly, I haven't studied it since then. It's been 25 years. And now we're going to get some stories firsthand from some of the people that were there on camera. So I might learn something on this one. I'm looking forward to it. Next week, Thursday night, May the 20th, 9 p.m. Eastern on Vice. Our friends with Dark Side of the Ring.
You say it returns next week. It was on this past week, the Nick Gage episode.
That wasn't wrestling. So I honored my word that I gave, and I didn't watch it because I don't want to see that fucking goof, that bank-addicted drug robber. And I even you can make the case, which I believe was a quote of mine. This is not going to do the public image of professional wrestling any good at all about the New Jack episode, but at least he started as a wrestler and ended up stabbing people in hotel ballrooms, whereas this guy was never a real fucking wrestler to begin with. He was a garbage wrestler from the start, then he got addicted to drugs, then he robbed a bank, went to prison, and then the fucking scum that he works for kept booking him to have more of these garbage death matches. And I think it glorifies that kind of shit to begin with, which only a scum-sucking, pond-dwelling mutant would either participate in or be a fan of. And secondly, for people, normal people who might be actually watching this because it is a mainstream television program on a network, not just a wrestling show per se, they'll think that this is another kind of professional wrestling, which it is not. It's an embarrassment, and it's garbage, and the people that are in it are garbage, and I don't choose to glorify that. Scum, I believe, was a word I mentioned.
So you didn't watch?
So I didn't watch it.
Okay.
Did you watch it?
I did watch it.
Why did you watch it?
I'm trying to not watch the news as much, so I have more time to watch things live as they happen. It is baseball season, and the Mets weren't playing, so I watched it live, and boy.
Well, what did you think of Mr. Garbage Deathmatch Bank-Addicted Drug Robber?
It hit me. Every now and then someone sends in a letter, either to the drive-thru or directly to you, and it'll say something along the lines of, I'm just curious, my uncle says he was a wrestler. His name was Flying Jack Hunter.
Yes.
And he, main evented all these shows, and usually
Jack Double Barrel Cannon.
We know right away it's BS because we are super fans, I guess you could say, who know the names of almost every wrestler that worked everywhere, ever. Now that you think about it.
I will give that to you. I will admit that over the last 10 or 15 years, my interest has waned enough that a lot of them have escaped my attention since then. But previously, yes.
It hit me watching this garbage wrestling, or what do they call it? Deathmatch wrestling, excuse me. I'm using the Christian name. This deathmatch wrestling scene, I realized watching this, I have no idea who any of these people are or what they're doing, because they had this one thing. I've heard this name Nick Gage for years. I had no idea who he was, or I knew about the Arquette incident, but that was it.
Yeah, that's why I saw that clip and a couple of the other clips to determine that, something's going on with the guy, but otherwise than that, I have no idea. Something mentally I'm talking about is going on, but I've never seen him before.
And I came out of this really sympathizing with Arquette for this situation, actually. But there's this whole other world of this guy, Nick Gage. Apparently, they're like, he's a big star in it, but then they show you the room, and if one of the room had 500 people, that may have been the most, and there's a lot of outdoor shows that don't seem that big. So He's really big with a very small subsect of wrestling, but I've at least heard his name. At one point, they're talking about this King of Death tournament on a field in Delaware, away from the authorities. The authorities can't get to them. When a wrestling show is running from the authorities, you may have a problem. So they're doing this show, and it's a deathmatch tournament, and he's in the main event. And I swear I'd never heard this guy's name before in my entire life. He's in the main event against apparently this deathmatch star and legend from Europe, from Germany.
They do it there too.
Named Thumbtack Jack.
Oh no.
So I'm laughing because they're like,
they ripped off one of Vince McMahon's worst gimmicks from the 80s to name one of their top guys.
So this guy Thumbtack Jack, he does all the death matches and stuff. So I'm laughing about his name. The match starts right away. He throws Nick Gage out of the ring into these light tubes. Right away, he gets a cut that hits an artery. He's bleeding to death. They take him out of there. See, I hate to laugh about it, but he survived. They take him out of there. He's cursing at the cameraman.
Wait a minute, back up. You just buried the lead. I hate to laugh about it, but he survived, so ha. I'll laugh about it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, then, because they were in a field, so the authorities couldn't get to them, they had to get a helicopter. They had to get a helicopter to get him out of there. He flatlined on the way to the hospital, and then he came back to life. But I believe via forfeit, Thumbtack Jack won the tournament, if I had to guess.
Was this before or after he went to prison for robbing the bank?
I believe it was before. This was kind of one of the things that cemented his deathmatch legend. So what
you're saying is this guy is already doing his stupid shit in front of these fucking mutant weirdos with these other mutant weirdos. He's already cut himself to the point where he almost bled out, flatlined while being airlifted, and came back to do more of it, then went to prison, then got out of prison, and then decided, well, hey, I need to do even more of this, is what you're saying to me.
Well, almost, because you left out a few steps. He starts wrestling for that CZW thing, and boy, I didn't know until I watched this that apparently some of these CZW guys hate the ECW guys, because they think that in the ECW guys' minds, this is so funny, that they look at these guys and think, you're going way too far. You're taking it too far. So they're like, fuck these ECW guys. So CZW's wrestling there. His brother's also a wrestler. And they're doing all these deathmatch things. He's getting injured so much that he develops a painkiller addiction, which causes him to rob a bank. The funniest line of the thing may have been Moxley, who's all over the thing.
I figure, yeah, I saw one of the clips. That's why another reason I don't like that fucking moron, but go ahead.
Well, he's got all of his teeth, so he was smiling all through this thing. But he brings up a great point. He goes, here's Nick Gage, and you're seeing this footage of him throughout this thing. He goes, every time he comes to the ring, the guy's a bandana over his face. The one time he does it, he's standing right in front of the camera in the bank, like it's clear as day who it is. And Moxley's laughing about that. So he goes away for like 5 years, and then he gets parole. And then they pop him again for, I think, a drug test. And he goes in for another 2 years. And since that time, he started working out. And now
he's really worried about his health and physical condition.
That's right.
Oh, my God. And like you said, these other deathmatch freaks get in the ring with this fucking guy. He's been on drugs. He's a fucking convicted felon. He's a goddamn lunatic that obviously doesn't care whether he mutilates himself. I'm going to work with this fucking guy? Fuck you.
Do you know about the Arquette incident? Like what happened exactly?
Yes. Remember we blistered him, David Arquette, for that on the goddamn show here a couple of years ago. This idiot, David Arquette, can't just fucking sit back and say, okay, I'm a joke to the wrestling fans because a goofy fucking writer 20 years ago made me a champion, but I'm still an actor from Hollywood, and that's just a blemish on my reputation with the wrestling fans. He's got to somehow 20 years later have a midlife crisis, train to become a wrestler, and then instead of doing actual real wrestling matches, does a fucking death match with the bank-addicted drug robber, and the bank-addicted drug robber cuts his fucking throat. And I laughed. And again, I laughed. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha.
Oh, stop it.
Because what the fuck do you think's gonna happen when some fucking bank-addicted drug robber slashes your throat with a broken fucking fluorescent light tube in what's supposed to be a wrestling match? It was a heel program. There was no baby face. All of them got what they deserved.
Well, David Arquette was interviewed as part of this Dark Side of the Ring.
I'm sure he was. Now he's scrambling for any attention or relevance he can get.
And I sympathize with what he said. So someone brought up the idea of working with this Nick Gage guy and doing a death match, and he was open to it. The one request he had when he took them to dinner for steak the night before was, don't cut me. I'm an actor. You can't cut my head. Don't cut me. And apparently without his knowledge during the match, Nick Gage took out a pizza cutter and started going back and forth over David Arquette's forehead and then put it in his mouth. And at that point, I don't want to say a shoot broke out, but you could tell in the footage, Arquette, he's like, what the fuck? And he says in the interview, I can't trust this guy with my body. So then he gets hit with the fig. He's bleeding out. I mean, it's just the whole thing. I'm not exactly sure. It was entertaining at times, but is that what Dark Side's supposed to be? Is it supposed to be like a look at something that happened in the past or something that's an ongoing thing that's just an entertaining? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's supposed to be the Dark Side of the Ring stories of professional wrestling. And because of, and this is another reason why I don't like this fucking Moxley clown, because of people like that, who is actually, whether he's any good or not, subject to your taste, he's an accepted name in the professional wrestling business. And he's over there hooting and hollering and glorifying this guy. And wow, it was so great because he likes that fucking thumbtack pizza cutter. Oh my God, did he slice my tongue? Bullshit. Which is why, obviously, that he didn't endear himself to the WWF administration. Because if that's every time that you give him leeway, he comes up with shit like this. That's what he comes up with. No wonder. So the point is, you've got a Hollywood actor participating in this, even if he gives cautionary tales afterwards, and you've got a guy who's supposed to be a legitimate big star in professional wrestling talking about how great this deathmatch clowns are. All that does is make people think that some people, weak-minded people, gullible people, will go, oh, I want to do this. I'll look up to these morons with their brain damage and their fucking broken bodies and their mutilated faces and their fucking drug addiction. I'll look up to them and I'll do this and I'll dive through glass panes and mouse traps. And it lends enough credibility to some of the fans. I should go and see this. And they fucking support that shit. And it gives other people, as I said before, normal people, the mistaken impression that this is somehow professional wrestling and that you should look at all professional wrestlers like these fucking morons. And as I've said before, the wrestling business doesn't need any help giving itself a black eye. But to call this stuff, whether it's Ian Rotten and his foolishness or that Combat Zone Wrestling horse shit or everybody that dives off the roof of a barn through a fucking truck windshield or this fucking bank-addicted drug robber, all it does is make people who don't know anything about professional wrestling look down on everybody else in it because they think this is part of it. Fuck them and feed them fish heads.
And that was Dark Side of the Ring.
But next week, we'll be back in North Korea where decent folks hang out.